Hi, folks, and welcome to Film Optimist, where we talk about all things film with a hefty dose of optimism. I'm your co host, Seth Boyd,
I am Megan Tierney.
and we are joined for the first time by a guest, a local artist who I got to meet at an event recently, who is fantastic. We'll talk more about his fantastic graphic design work and graphic novel later. But firstly, welcome to the podcast, Adam Meltzer.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for having me. This is a cool experience. I don't know, like it's one of the like Seth, I met you at a show, which was
Yeah.
super nice. And I can't tell you how many times people come up to the booth and go like, "Hey, do you think you can like draw me a tattoo or something?" And then I go, "Yeah, sure." And then they never reach out or like they follow me right away. So it's like so I was a little surprised and obviously honored when you reached back out very quickly and was like, "Yeah, let's do this." And we actually did it. Like I like when plans actually hook up. So
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, likewise, I'm glad we've had some people say, like, yeah, that sounds fun, and never get back to us.
Yeah, which I
Very
can't
grateful to
imagine
have
why
you.
not. Yeah, I was super excited to do this. I listen to podcasts all the time, and
Great.
this is fun to be on. But yeah,
Fantastic. And I should say, I think among the reasons I kind of thought, when I was looking at your art, and it was great, and I got your book, Saunter Ever Forward.
oh, that's right, you
Which
did
is,
buy one. That's super nice. Yeah.
yes, very, very cool. And we'll give you space to talk about that. But something I noted that made me think, I think this guy would be good to have a podcast, is you had a drawing of the treehouse in Hereditary.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, yeah, this guy gets it. So,
No, it's super fun. Yeah, like yeah, we'll talk more about that later. Totally. But
I sensed a kindred spirit.
Yes.
So,
absolutely. No, absolutely. I think we did talk
so-
for a good like 20 minutes about all the type of films
Yeah.
and movies and everything, and we picked apart the whole like print set that I had. But yeah, it was
Yeah.
exciting.
It was very cool, and I'm excited to get more of your art. But
Sweet.
tying into why you're here,
Mhm.
tell us what you picked and why.
I picked 1979's Alien.
Mhm.
It is truly one of my favorite horror movies and horror franchises of all time. I think it has a really good testament to what you can do with like I don't know like not a lot of cast, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like what you can do with a simple concept and how you can instill fear into an audience with that kind of simple concept.
Yes.
It was one of my first introductions into like horror movies. I was raised a little bit in a household that didn't watch a lot of horror.
Mhm.
A lot of Disney, a lot of nice things. Which
Sure.
was totally fine. Or like it was whatever my parents wanted to watch, and that was fine too. And then once I kind of hit college, it was my introduction into like, oh wait, I don't have to like ask a permission. I can actually kind of just like jump in and watch something fun that I wanted to watch. And I think I watched this by myself for the first time, like
Mhm.
in college, and it was very very odd by myself. I should have turned on lights, but I don't think I did. I think it was just on my own. But
Fantastic. Great pick. One of my favorites as well. And Megan, had you seen it before, or were you watching it for the first time for the
Nope.
podcast?
This was number one watch for me. It's getting a
man.
little it's a little comical, Adam, that of how many movies is my first watch on this podcast. It's getting a little
Okay.
humbling, but
Yeah, I think I've
hey,
listened. I think I've listened to a couple episodes, and I think I'm noticing the trend.
I'm
Which is,
having a great time.
oh yeah,
It's amazing to watch all of these. But yeah, I can agree to that. I think that like I relate to you, Adam, in that like I was a Disney kid growing up.
yeah.
My parents were not horror fans, and it was deemed too scary for the children. So
Yeah.
I got the joy of like watching it kind of in the right way of like being a teenager going with my friends and not telling your parents about what you're going to see.
Mhm.
But I grew up more in like the paranormal genre, and that's kind of my jam.
Oh,
So I
okay.
think like alien stuff sort of went a little bit to the wayside, and it just kind of like topically, I think when I was coming into my horror era, it was going to the wayside a little bit. But I'm glad that it's coming back. I think Ridley Scott's name is still being touted, and he's got some more stuff coming up, and I can see why.
Absolutely.
If this was his second film, I believe that's pretty insane, incredible, and yeah, it was a fun. We love like also we've been enjoying Seth and I like seeing the firsts of directors, these directors that are kind of household names now, and to see what they do with their typically smaller budgets, or like what their first passion project is really, because that's kind of like what comes out for their first couple movies. This is an incredible shot out of the gate, basically. So really fun for me to talk about with you guys too.
I didn't even realize this. This is his second movie. I knew he was
Second,
early.
yeah.
We have done so many second movies in particular on this podcast. I didn't realize we were doing that
what was his,
again.
you
His
know what his
first is The
first movie was?
Duelist, which I have not seen, but I've heard it's
Yeah.
great. It's also kind of funny considering his latest movie is Napoleon. It takes place during the Napoleonic Wars, and it's Harvey Keitel and I believe Keith Carradine as kind of military officers who have this like decades-long feud and keep having multiple duels. But apparently it's great, and it kind of often a hard movie to find. But yeah, this is crazy. This is such an accomplished movie, and it is his second film. I didn't realize that either.
Me neither.
And yeah, Ridley Scott does not slow down, maybe to his detriment. Well, I think such a factor of this movie is the incredible set design, just the artistic design in general. We have H.R. Geiger worked a lot on this, and you have incredible matte paintings. This obviously one of the most iconic horror monsters, the xenomorph, the alien. So I was curious, Adam, how you find the inspiration from that, or your thoughts on it, as our visual artist here.
That's my absolute favorite question. So I'm kind of, so since I saw it, I was kind of absolutely obsessed with it. It's interesting, just how biomechanical it is, but it's also like this natural organism predator type deal, as opposed to like regular Predator. If we go into that franchise, how there's like a mask and all this stuff. This is just like a pure like bio weapon type thing, but it's incredibly textured and detailed, which is I in my work I like to use a lot of very hyper detail stuff. I mean you've read the book, like it's very almost like a woodcut, So
yeah.
I very much like the design of it. I think the set design of this movie is incredible. I think the xenomorph is the testament of what a monster can be, as opposed to like if you think of like a children's animation movie, like usually the monster's like this fuzzy thing. It's got like a couple of horns or like the big eyes, But this is this is an incredibly haunting being that you don't see very much of in the movie, which is why I think I like it the most, because you just want more of it. It just leaves you there. Like saying, I wish I would have seen a little bit more, but that's why we have several more movies of Alien. I like the design so much, I actually have it tattooed on me. So I do,
Wow.
I do have a xenomorph tattoo, which is super fun. But I have a little shrine over here to all the Alien stuff too. Like my wife and I, we both collect a bunch of trinkets, and but
fantastic.
That's awesome.
Kind of obsessed.
Would you say top monster, like top movie monster?
Yeah, actually.
Well, yeah.
Like if I show you like,
good question.
I'm going to take you on a quick.
Let's see the shrine
of our home studio. So,
and for the listening audience, Adam is wearing an Alien hoodie as well.
Yes.
So this is fantastic.
And then like I just recently turned 30, which is very weird, and my wife gifted me with this lovely pastel drawing of.
Oh, very nice.
In the sleeve, it's a little
very nice.
But yeah, so I definitely I think top monster for me.
Awesome. That's really
very cool. It was occurring to me in watching us for the first time. I heard this decades ago, a clip of Ridley Scott talking about how he was so influenced by Star Wars in making Alien, and particularly the used universe, this place that is not chrome, bright, and shiny, which I think if you haven't seen Star Wars in a while, and I haven't, I kind of forget, because so much of the iconic image of Star Wars is the Empire. It's the Death Star, and it is bright, shiny, white, chrome, etc. But like Tatooine and all those other places that are dirty was a very inspiring to Ridley Scott when he made this. And I think this is maybe the best movie inspired by Star Wars, because it's not trying to be Star Wars. It's learning that lesson. It has those great shots of like the ship passing overhead at the top of the screen, and it has a score with a classical symphony. And I really like Ridley Scott, especially that young, being smart to have those takeaways, not I'm going to make a fantasy saga, which is, we don't talk about them that often because they suck, but there's a lot of movies that came out after Star Wars that are bad ripoffs. Often they're shot in other countries very cheaply, and they're poorly dubbed, and they just don't get what made Star Wars good, So I think that's also a sign of a great director of recognizing how they can take these lessons and put them in a completely different genre, a different type of story.
What an interesting blank canvas too of space. Like this
Yeah.
unknown, like literally nobody knows except if you're a very intelligent person. But yeah, so like if like unless you study space frequently, like this is such an untapped potential of like what could happen in a movie. And I think they do it really well with not going the super shiny, almost like 2001 Space Odyssey route where everything's and I like all the flashing lights, yes, but it's also like this really fun like retro tech that they use on like the panels. And I don't know, like I'm gonna say props to the actors because they're really awesome, but like they're very convincing when they push buttons and flip levers and do all this.
Right.
But I love the grittiness. Go ahead.
So it even reminds me of like architectural stuff going on at the time. I mean, talking about, or I don't know if it's like almost postmodern. I think that we're starting to get into postmodern stuff around this era of 79. And it looks like, how homes, I guess, would want to be, or like I think it's like a perfect like postmodern set design, specifically of the ship itself, because it's kind of like elegantly designed. I think like now there's a lot of like hyper realism with space movies, and that's kind of the goal, but this is like it's so nice to see like a kind of the stylized version that's not, like you guys say, like chrome and sleek and ugly in some ways. Like it's cool to see it very very like specific as well. It's just like such a specific design. And I think I love like the editing style of it too, but including that, I really love the title card, like how sleek that is. It looks like lines and numbers and lines and zeros, and just all that little stuff really is nicely put together, I feel like, and is such a mood enhancer of this whole thing. But I mean, it could be literally boiled down to three like really main big things of like we say, like flashing lights, and it may well, I'm thinking the flashing lights really like got to me too, but like as a standout. So I don't know, the set was pretty incredible, like in its simplistic design, which was fun to see.
It almost looks lived in too, right?
Yes.
Like so, like we think of like a Star Trek or a Star Wars. I mean, I guess Star Wars with the Millennium that looked pretty lived in, but like, this looks like they've been here for a sec. They've done some stuff. They've eaten some food. There's papers everywhere. Like even in that opening sequence, when like the camera's just kind of giving you the scope of how big this ship is, and all of the hallways and the doors and the different areas of like before they come out of stasis, right? There's like papers that like blow in whatever kind of breeze is on this ship, or like the air duct or whatever, but like it looks as if they're like, oh, I don't know where my pencil is, I got to go to this room and find my pencil, you know what I mean? Like but it's immaculate. I can't imagine constructing or even conceiving the idea of how this would look. Like it just seems like huge undertaking, especially if this is the route you want to go, like this deep gritty kind of space trucking vessel, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said space trucking, because that's my favorite thing about this movie. Is this is not Starfleet, this is not Jedi, this is literally space truckers. These are commercial employees who are absolutely like not the cream of the crop. They're not the ones who go deal with a distress signal, but they also have to. And I think that among those ways this movie has aged so well is like it's kind of a workers' rights issue movie, and you kind of begin with having two of the guys, is it Parker and Brett or Bert? It's Harry Dean Stanton, and you have to come to talking about like either bonus pay and how come we're getting paid less than everybody else. And it's a good point that is never really seriously answered, and they're treated as kind of greedy, and as things get worse and worse, it becomes a more relevant question. And I think that's something that the universe is the sequels expanded on quite a bit, is the evils of the Wayland Corporation is really kind of the villain here of, they are sent into this knowingly and expected to not return. So I don't know, is that an aspect that you kind of enjoy about it as well, Adam, is like a big fan of it? Or
yeah, I really like it a lot. I love that there's this behind the scenes type thing happening, because this could just be a circumstance of like, oh, there's a beacon, oh, we have to investigate because we're contractually obligated, and oh snap, now we're in this position. But the fact that there's somebody in the background and there's a huge entity pulling these strings and basically forcing them to endure it, and they don't realize that till a lot later. That's the part that I really like about it. I remember watching that for the first time, and like Ridley's in Mother, right? Like that room, which that's a fun design too. But Ridley sitting in that room and it's crew expendable moment, and then Ash around the corner, like that for me was like, oh snap, he knows, But
well, I think that scene is so great because Ian Holm is a great actor, and folks ever wonder where you recognize him from? He's Bilbo Baggins, among other things. But he does not look strong enough to be thrown around Sigourney Weaver. So you start to get the hint, and there's already been some other things, so you get the hint like this is some supernatural strength of like, oh shit, of course he's a robot. That's what's making sense because he's moving so strangely and intentionally.
I remember watching when I watched it for the first time by myself. I think that was the only part of this movie that took me out of it for a brief moment because I had no idea. I didn't know what this movie was. I knew that I wanted to watch something scary, and I was like, "This seems like a good one." I remember seeing it on the shelf at Blockbuster when I was a kid.
Sure.
Yeah. Like no one knows that one. But like that moment did not make sense to me until Yaphet Kotto's character like knocks his head off, and I was like, "Oh, he's not a person,"
Right. I love that too because Yaphet Kotto does look strong enough to knock a head off Ian Holm. So.
Yeah, he's the scariest member on this ship. Like I think given the right circumstances, I think he could have taken it head on, maybe.
And kind of the most realistic. It's kind of nice. Like I think that people aren't like they're acting so believably in this situation that because they are so kind of like down to earth characters. So and just like maybe one or two scientists in there that know the ins and outs of everything. Supposedly that's kind of like the setup, but that even that gets turned on its head instead of that they're like these superhero characters almost like for a space movie or something like that. So I enjoy that too. Like I think it's just very realistic, and it helps the horror element here too, and I guess the thriller element of it all.
I think something else that really works about the movie is the same thing that makes The Thing, the Carpenter version, great, is that if you are watching it for the first time and if you haven't heard anything about it, you don't expect the main character to be the main character. Ripley is not set up to be the last person, just like Kurt Russell isn't set up to be the Thing. We have a captain of the ship. We have Tom Skerritt, and the first person you see, the first actor, is John Hurt. And he's kind of in that opening scene set up to be like he's going to be important, and he is obviously. But I was curious if Adam, if you remember, kind of being surprised by the twist, other than the robot one. And Megan, as a first-time viewer, did you have any of these spoilers? Because I knew about the chest burster scene. Everything else in this movie surprised me when I saw it for the first time.
I knew there was an alien coming out of somebody, but I had no concept was, and I knew it was like something like some being that was and it like came. I didn't know that it was going to be a chest burster scene. So first time watch when I was in college by myself was pretty like stomach churning for a sec, because having not like the biggest, and now I'm all in on it, but having not like the biggest exposure to horror things growing up, that was a very interesting surprise, and I don't know, like it definitely sets a tone immediately. You're like, oh shit, like now it's on, and we don't know where it is, and they just showed us how big this ship is, right? Like these long hallways, and like everything looks biomechanical. This little thing that popped out of this chest is biomechanical, right? So, but that one definitely shocked me. I thought when this movie started, just because like organically they kind of put John Hurt at the forefront of this movie. He's like the first one to like when they land on the planet, he's the first one to volunteer to go out, right? So you think that this movie is about him. When they come out of stasis, he's the first one to wake up, right? So like even when they're having that conversation in the beginning where they're just kind of small talking and having those little moments, and you're trying to see, okay, who does what and who's the funny one and who's like the the grouchy one. There's a lot of pandering on him, so like automatically I thought he was the main character, and I thought Ripley or Sigourney Weaver was the side character. And then it just kind of like, because I knew of Sigourney Weaver being in this movie. Like it's hard to exist a couple years of life and not realizing that Sigourney Weaver's a badass and she's like at the forefront of the show. Um, yeah, so I was pretty shocked when it was him, and I was very shocked that it was like, oh, we're gonna launch him into space, and now he's not in the movie anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Megan, what about for you as a first time viewer?
I too had the chest bursting scene spoiled to me. Damn it. I mean, I can only imagine how crazy that was in theaters. It was very effective. I'm kind of surprised that that's the most like that's the one I hear everybody talk about is they know about the
Sure.
chest bursting thing. And it's like it's funny that everybody calls it that too, because I guess how else would you describe it? But I thought the like robot head cutting off was very, I mean, I had no idea about that. I thought that was very impactful. The
Yeah.
like the sweating milk or something, you know, like
That also took me off guard because I
yep.
didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I said I was like milk or I what is that? I just couldn't, I was really trying to decipher because I do love that, and I think that the movie does incredibly well bio horrors going on. I mean, this is
Sure.
maybe the best, like a lot of really really good bio horror stuff going on, which isn't my favorite, but I think when it comes to like Alien, I think it's just so effective and like very makes sense for the genre because of this like uncanny valley of what an alien is and what it can be. And to me this
Mhm.
is almost like perfect stuff because I love also when the discovery of the like this ship thing or the actual alien, that giant thing, and it's so intricate and
So
crazy
massive.
looking and massive, and like it just has to imply a creator, and even that is like
Mhm.
terrifying if you're in a, you know, if you're in outer space, if you're in an unknown place where no life is expected to be there, like I think the buildup of it all is really really nice too. But yeah,
Mhm.
that robot decapitating thing was pretty insane. I'm surprised that that's not talked about more because I was sure as hell surprised.
Well, even like
You
the
know,
when they discovered the ship, right? Like
Uh-huh.
right.
the sheer amount of eggs,
Yeah.
and the captain or whatever, that I forget the name. I should know this. I'm obsessed with this movie. But whatever, like that in that big chair,
Mhm.
and like their chest is open, and it's like, what is the weapon? Like, what is the cannon? What is the person type
Hmm.
thing? Like that was strange watching up front. But then when they go down, and there's
Uh-huh.
the absolute fog of just a million eggs. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like the fact that he went down to explore and poke one, like when
Hmm.
he shines the flashlight on, you can see the thing inside. That's when I'm not gonna be on that planet anymore. Like I'm
Right.
not even
I know.
an egg. Like
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, that's a great point. I think so much you talk about is the pacing of this movie. There's really maybe one jump scare, even like the chest burster scene. I don't think you count because there's so much happening building up to it, and everyone's reacting. There's not just a monster that pops in the frame. Even like so much of the opening, the tension is just kind of seeing how big the spaceship is, like you're talking about that, and like you have the great eerie. You have the score by I think Jerry Goldsmith is great. Like you have a lot of tension happening for a long time. The movie's called Alien. You were expecting something to happen, but it's nearly an hour before this movie really kicks off. Tension's being built the whole time, but even like this scene of Harry Dean Stanton getting killed, when he's looking for the cat, that's not a jump scare. That's the tail and is in the frame, and then slowly the face enters. I think that's such a great lesson too. If you can have these shocking sudden kills without doing jump scares.
I think the pacing really, I don't know. I very much like slow movies. I love
Mhm.
when there's
Mhm.
a heavy dialogue. I love, like,
Sure.
if it's 3 hours, I'm immediately gonna watch it. Like I very much like that type of movie. So the fact that this movie doesn't have the most length to it, but it still
Mhm.
seems like this drawn out, even when there's only a couple main characters left, and they're having the
Right.
conversation, and they're telling Yaphet Kotto's character to like makeshift some flamethrowers, right?
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
Even that for me was getting very tense because they're trying to come up with this quick plan of like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? And like it's in the ship, so that
Yeah.
they could go to the bathroom, and it's in the bathroom. Like the fact that it's so expansive, but it's there. It's like when you try to kill a spider and then you miss the spider and it's somewhere in the house, right?
Right.
So you just know it's then it eats at you. Like so, the pacing does a very good job of making sure that you are a little bit off your chair and
Mhm.
uncomfortable the
Mhm.
whole time. And then when it does pay off, and like when Dallas dies in the air vent, right? Like that got
Yeah.
me for the too, because everything is mechanical in that whole shaft, and then
Mhm.
it moves, like the wall moves, and there it is, and it's half a second, and you're like, oh well, it's gone,
Yeah.
like it's just, I don't know, they do a very good job.
Yeah, it's a very well made movie. Also, like so much of the cinematography is just great, and it's like so many shots are just very engaging in a way that I think a lot of the best horror movies now are. It's like
Yes.
it just looks interesting. It's good to look at. And it's got your attention. And so
Mhm.
much of making a good movie is just those basic things. Are you guys aware of the lawsuit about this movie, about the story?
I'm
No.
not.
So there was a lawsuit that was settled out of court for A.E. Van Vogt, the sci-fi writer, had a short story that was said to inspire this, called The Black Destroyer. That is basically a monster alien ends up on a ship of a crew that is, I think in the book they're also short, they're commercial, they're not military or whatever. So
Mhm.
basically the screenplay was written independently without any credit given to this. Um, it's an interesting lawsuit that essentially that was settled because I read the short story and it definitely is. It's yeah, this is the core concept. It came out like 39 or something, but I don't think it's very good. I remember it just being kind of boring to read. I read it in a sci-fi class, so and I can't really remember any of the other. I don't really remember anything about it other than the core concept of monsters on uh, the spaceship and what are we going to do, because that is such a source of the fear of this movie is we are isolated, we can't leave. It's
Mhm.
on,
Yeah.
it's in
Yeah.
here. This is not like there's a vampire out there and we just got to run, so, or anything like that. But important to note, I think, just again, I was settled for $50,000, which in the 70s, a decent amount of money, and then it was kind of never brought up again. So it seemed like everyone was happy, from my understanding
Hmm.
of it.
Yeah. And
Um,
I think Alien got the better end of it. Like, I
yes.
think they too. Yeah. No, I didn't know there was an active lawsuit. I know there was some, and this is just things that I've like read, watched. But like there was
Sure.
some, I know some creative differences on the score.
Yeah.
I think Scott was very much into like the synthesizer type route of like
Mm.
what
Mm.
concept of space was at that time, and I think a lot of different angles were like Jerry Goldsmith knows what he's doing. Let's let him do, and let's trust
Mhm.
him. I mean, like this that album is actually on like several different playlists of just like studio playlists. If I'm
I
illustrating
bet.
or drawing, I'm somewhere, it just kind of pops up, and I don't know, like the orchestra set behind is really cool. But yeah, I didn't know that there was a lawsuit thing about a story. I know the Nostromo's is
Yeah.
named after a.
Yes, a Joseph Conrad book,
Yeah.
Oh my God, that makes sense. Well,
and
because
my understanding is the you go
I
ahead.
was
Sorry,
gonna
Mary.
say too that like it reminds me of not a great movie, but The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which is a Dracula story. I mean, they're stuck
Sure.
on a ship too, so that's not a very it's a bit of a universal story concept going
Sure.
on. This one, I know Alien to like as the original kind of like big name for a movie of that kind. Especially for aliens, like alien genre. So I don't know.
Sure.
It's pretty like
That's a good point,
um
Mick. It's like, yeah,
inextricable.
Dracula definitely came out well before
Yeah,
um, the A. Van Vogt story. Um,
that's right. Hmm.
but I was just gonna say, while we're talking about Jared Goldsmith real quick, if you don't know his name, folks, you probably have heard his music. He did Chinatown, he did The Omen, Poltergeist, Planet of the
Oh,
Apes, and the first 5 Star Trek movies, and one of his last movies was The Mummy, the Brendan Fraser version. So,
wow.
like you said, a guy who knew what he was doing,
Right.
a very prolific composer who worked with a lot of big directors. This movie also, we're kind of talking like production, behind the scenes stuff, had, I think, the best tagline of all time. In space, no one can hear you scream was what was on the poster.
That's
And
Those
cool.
I think the
things,
original trailer ended that too. It's so good.
yeah,
Wow.
the original trailer stands up very well too. Like I think,
Yeah,
like for me, this is like, because if we talk aesthetic, right? Like in space, no one can hear you scream is a very literal but also incredibly bone chilling sentence, because there's,
mhm.
there's there's no one out there with you.
Mhm.
And it establishes isolation before you even watch the movie. I
Right.
compared this movie with like current and like whoever's on the forefront right now. So A24.
Yeah.
right? Like that production company established some sort of aesthetic that as soon as that goes
Yeah.
across the screen, people are immediately invested because they know the quality.
Mhm.
I think this 100% parallels like A24 before A24 was even a thing. Like
Mhm.
it has that
Mm.
very open atmospheric kind of beautiful setting that you kind of want in a movie like this. But I'm just thankful it was made because this is a very fun movie.
It is, and we were all kind of seeing it for the first time. I saw this for the first time in theaters. My wife took me. It was already one of her
Nice.
favorite movies, and I don't remember what this place is called, but shout out to back in California, the Orinda Theater. I say Orinda Theater because there's literally one in that town. It used to have a free screen every month, um,
Mm.
and they partnered with a local cupcake place. Said they had like a questions beforehand. If you got a question right, you got a cupcake. So it was a chest burster cupcake. That was great. So
Super fun.
I won one for each of us. It was a good time.
Yay.
If they still do that, folks, if you're listening, you're in the Bay Area, check it out. It's a fun time. A lot of kids at that showing, surprisingly.
I did
Um,
a monster movie, a classic
oh,
monster
really?
movie Halloween thing that my mom and I, because
Nice.
she's a Creature of the Black Lagoon is like her
Yeah,
jam. So it was really fun.
that one holds up a lot better than I expected to. I saw that for the first time. I really liked it.
Kind
Actually,
of it's similar things going on. It's just,
Yeah,
really well designed tactical monsters, I feel like.
right.
I've seen the design work of it, but I've actually never seen the movie. But
I,
I recommend it
I'm the same. I've only seen a little bit, like portions of it too.
because like that era of Universal monsters is not the most like those movies are have an iconic monster, but their quality is pretty
Yeah.
diverse.
Oh,
Sometimes you get James Whale, sometimes you don't. But no, that movie was like I was expecting like a kind of fun B movie,
yes.
and I think budget wise it technically was, but it was a lot better than I expected it to be.
Well,
So
that's good to know.
yeah,
Well,
no, we gotta
speaking
check it out.
of budget, I looked
yeah,
up quickly. This is an $11 million budget for Alien. I just, it's always insane to me. I mean, this literally to me looks like a $100 million movie today. So
right,
I just that is always like so impressive to me. And this one in particular, I feel like it creates scope so well, and
yeah,
I don't even know how it's not a lot from what I can tell. I don't know too much about like artistic design, but it just looks so real. I mean, either if it's diagram or diorama style or whatever they did, um, is so convincing. It's more convincing than today, to be honest. Like, is just my opinion.
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I just can't believe it.
My wife and I, we actually honeymooned in Seattle and Portland.
Oh,
And
nice.
in Seattle they have Mopop, which is the Museum of Pop Culture. I can't remember the whole title of it,
Oh,
but they had a sci-fi exhibit. So they
Mm.
had, and I freaked out because I didn't know about it, and it was one of those days. What are we gonna do today? And that was like on our list of things. But they had a sci-fi exhibit, and they had actual artifacts from sci-fi movies from across film. Like they had Darth Vader's
Nice.
lightsaber.
no,
That was
Oh,
cool.
cool.
yeah.
They had some of the builds from Blade Runner, like some of the building builds,
Mm.
and then
Yeah.
we stumbled upon a whole little alien section where I lost my mind. They had the original screenplay, like in this awesome box.
Wow.
Wow.
They had the actual suit, the actual uniform suit, which very much took a
Yeah.
picture in front of
Wow.
because I had to. But a lot of the builds, like the Nostromo build that they had, was actually there as well. Like a lot of the
Yeah.
little what is it? It was, forget his name, the gentleman in the Hawaiian shirt. I forget his name in the
Harry Dean
movie.
Stanton is the actor's
Yeah.
name.
Yeah, so his hat, his little trucker hat was
Oh,
Oh, nice.
very cool.
I should have looked up those photos before the fact, but
Yeah,
that was a really cool like kind of deep dive
that's
into like, man,
awesome.
they put a lot of work into this, right? And I
Mhm.
think
Yeah,
just seeing like what they could do with like those small builds, like is looking at the ship, and then also when you watch this movie, you feel like you're there.
Yeah, I think so.
yeah,
How it's
you
structured,
really do.
how the camera's set up, and how it just pans through everybody. It seems tight and claustrophobic at the moments where it needs to, like the scene where
Right.
Sigourney Weaver has like signaled the self-destruct. She's running down. She's got a cat, and she's got like kind of weapon, and there's smoke and there's steam and
Right.
there's everything. She rounds the corner and aliens right there.
Yep.
That whole scene of like the shaky camera and
Yeah.
just like the
Mhm.
smoke, like the smoke for me would just be too much, and I, you know what I mean, like, and all the lights, and just let alone there's another being on this ship that wants to kill them.
Uh-huh.
Right.
I say again, like Giger's designs.
Mhm.
Because if you guys looked at his paintings before, or
Yes, my wife's a big fan. My
Oh.
wife is an art major, so
but yeah, so
yeah.
like his paintings and his drawings and his illustrations are nuts. And
Wow.
like I
Mhm.
think the idea that a production company teamed up with this like fine artist
Mhm.
Yeah.
to create something as unsettling as like a painting would be, right? And like
Mhm.
let's turn a painting into this, like something that you can actually in-depth experience and watch unfold in front of you. I think they hit it on every single cylinder.
Yeah.
And they hit it so well that there's several movies after this that I feel hit very well as well, you know.
Mhm.
But no,
Yeah.
props to whoever made any of those sets because it's
Right.
it's fun to have on in the background, actually.
I think something I didn't realize until this viewing is how many matte paintings there are too that are also
Wow.
incredible. And like, I can't feel dumb for not realizing this. And so shout out to my lovely wife and returning guest Anne for pointing out to me in those scenes where they're first going into the investigate the distress signal, and you
Mhm.
have like the camera feedback. That's a matte painting that we see, but it's such a great idea that you have like the footage kind of looking extra shaky and have that like blue filter over it, but of them kind of slowly walking, but or sometimes it's just not walking. You know what I'm talking about? You have like the blue footage and like Holmes watching it back. You know,
I did
that
not
is
know
just
that.
kind of a matte painting, but it has that distorted by having it look like it's the camera feedback they're watching. It's the
Mm.
live feed. It's such a great idea.
It is such a
um,
that's such a
yeah,
genius idea because you don't have to construct
right.
anything.
It's
You just
very economical. Yeah.
I like this. I'm learning things
So yeah,
today.
I think that yeah, I think that that's such a great I, sign of the again Ridley Scott being a great director is like yeah hiring the right people to do so much of this stuff. And I'll be honest, I think his quality's definitely declined. I still every now and then there's a Ridley Scott movie that I'm excited to see. I was excited to see Napoleon, then you know hearing more and more about the very willful distortion of history just
Mhm.
seemed
Mm.
silly
Yeah,
to me. It's like, oh, I wanted to see the Napoleon story. I don't want
yeah,
to see
yeah. I want to see
this.
it unfold.
I'm probably still eventually going
Yes,
to see it,
Mhm.
and I think that's among the reasons why I miss him doing sci-fi. Obviously, he's made some more movies like Prometheus and Alien Covenant, like back to this universe. But it's like he was so good at doing sci-fi. Um,
yeah.
it'd be great to see
Megan,
him do a
have you
brand new world
seen
again.
Prometheus or Covenant?
Not
I
yet.
saw Prometheus.
Mhm.
Okay.
Um, Mixed feelings.
Yeah, I've heard
There's
the
some
same.
parts that are good about it. Yeah, there's some things that I like about it.
Yeah.
I do think in general a problem with sci-fi, and frankly, this is a big problem I have with Star Wars, is when you're returning to something so much later, and then you make the universe so much bigger.
Mhm.
Of like things being tied together. It just like
Mhm.
why does this need to be the same story? Why are we still talking about the Skywalkers,
Mhm.
or why like? And I love Star Trek. Star Trek is often independent stories, or it's referencing very tangentially other
Mhm.
things. It's not all of Star Trek is not the arc of Captain Kirk. It's not all his family or something, and I wouldn't like it if it was. Um, so, oh, mixed feelings, but I thought a lot of the actors were great in Prometheus, and there's some fun sets for sure.
Mm.
Um,
Agreed. I
that's my
very much
tangent.
yeah, right. I will not spoil anything, obviously, but I weirdly like Prometheus a lot for what it is. I understand, like
Uh-huh.
I very
Sure.
much agree with you, like with the everything shouldn't be connected because if space is incredibly infinite, why are we still going vacuum
Right.
things?
Doesn't make sense.
And the actual odds of those things connecting are very few and far between. Um,
Right.
I very much like Prometheus for the sake of it's a perspective that I did not think even connected with this universe. And
Hmm.
I remember when I watched it, I had no idea that this was actually tied to this
Okay.
franchise. Yeah. So when
Interesting.
that
Yeah.
so and like I said, not spoiling, when something happens, I was
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, this is tied to my favorite thing, you know? So um that is I have that like small little nostalgic for it. It's a wild movie
Sure.
though.
Yeah.
There's
It is.
quite a bit that unfolds. Covenant was just a fun little standalone alien movie that did a thing, and um, I'm not like I said, I'm biased. I like all of them.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just like the weird, the creepy, the extreme. Like because if you get into like 3 and 4 of like of Alien,
Yeah.
they get wild. like just strange. Like
I was gonna say, what is your favorite sequel? Because I've only seen Aliens, the James Cameron, like the first sequel, which is also very good. And I think a lot of people
I
would
would
tout that as that. But do you have a soft spot for one of the weirder ones?
definitely Aliens, definitely the second one. I think
Okay.
it's very much I tie it with like it's like what I messaged you about what movie to pick because I was
Yeah.
tied between so many. It's very much like
Mhm.
Jurassic Park with me.
Ah,
It's that summer blockbuster. It's explosive. It's
Sure.
funny. It's like
Yeah.
this would never happen kind of scenario, but here we are
Yeah.
watching it, like, and it's I
Sure.
think it's a little darker, and like obviously the budget was way more, and just like it just seemed, um, yeah, I like that. It just excites me a lot. Like I have a buddy that he is my movie buddy alongside my wife.
Nice.
But he always comes up and we watch movies. I showed him this for the first time. Um,
Oh, nice.
and and he was like, this wasn't what I thought. Like, I think that was. He goes, for what it was, it's awesome. And I was like, just wait till the second one.
Nah.
Completely different tone, completely different pace. I'm like, it's not
Right.
necessarily scary, but it is also it's a very fun ride to
Yeah.
sit through and see what happens through it. So like, I definitely think the second one is my favorite. I would say Alien is probably my favorite horror movie, like of
Yeah.
all time.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
did it very well in this one, but I think Aliens. I don't know if it falls. I mean, because you've seen, I don't know if it falls into the category of like a horror movie.
Aliens. I think you got a good point because it's more of an action movie.
Mhm.
And I think that is also, to a certain degree, it's like, oh, it would have been interesting to see what Ridley Scott did for an Alien sequel. But
Very
because
different
James
tone.
Cameron, yeah, I kind of also respect it being, production value. It's a very well made. Aliens, I'm talking about, is an incredibly well made movie that I think is as good. Like, let's just say objectively, without taste aside, I prefer Alien, but objectively, these are as good of movies, which is crazy for a sequel, and also even
Yeah.
more surprising for it to basically be a different genre. Because yeah, it is much more horror
Yeah.
action than horror thriller like the original.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a
And
good point.
honestly, good on whoever made that call and letting James Cameron do that. It's an odd move. It's like
Yeah.
I can't really think of
Well, it's
another movie
almost
I
like,
want to have the sequel be so different.
yeah. Well, I mean, like if we think about like the last Star Wars trilogy that came out, right?
Sure.
Like let's switch directors and see what happens. And
Yeah.
I think,
Switch studios.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that second one kind of fell not in any sort of direction that anyone asked for, right? Like, and
Yeah.
that's just me being a nerd and liking Star Wars a lot. So like, I think
Sure.
after The Force Awakens, we had high anticipations for quite a few things to happen, and then the second one came out and none of that happened. Everything was like
Yeah.
cut at the knees and let's start fresh and try to make a third one, which I think is why that trilogy wasn't necessarily the most successful. I mean, did I go to the theater to watch all of them? I did, but also they did get my money, but also
Right.
I think it could have been done a different way. But yeah, like you said, props to whoever made the call to throw James Cameron on the second one and see what he can do with it, because I think he did a very good job.
Yeah. I mean, the story, I have no idea if this is true, that his pitch was literally just writing the word alien on a chalkboard and writing an S at the end. And that was his supposed, like, Hollywood legend has it, that was the entirety of his pitch, and it worked. No idea if that's true. It's just a story that's told so often.
I hope that's true.
Right, because he had already done, I think, Terminator at that point, which, the Terminator sequels are also, Terminator 2 is like completely different. That's also
Yes.
action, whereas the first Terminator is more of a
Mhm.
sci-fi thriller as well.
Yeah.
So he's kind of the king at doing a different genre sequel.
I have a question for you guys
Sure.
as fans of the whole genre, because I feel like I knew about the iconicism of the xenomorph, and
Sure.
especially even just the design of that monster in particular. Like I'm a Stranger Things fan. I feel like the Demogorgon is based off of it. There's now so many monsters that I feel like really that kind of look that human form but have something crazy going on, or are like that biomechanical stature going on. Do you feel like the genre kind of like, or the series, that kind of perpetuated it, like they were moved
Yeah.
by the wanting to see the xenomorph again, or is it a little bit more story based? I feel I had an assumption, maybe it's a wrong assumption, that like the xenomorph was kind of the thing driving this franchise.
I feel like I'm also an illustrator, but I'm also an art teacher, right? So like my full-time job, I teach middle school art. So like I say a lot, like there's not really any original idea anymore,
Yes,
like at all. So
that's very true.
I think if you're on a board and you're trying to figure out, okay, how is our monster going to look? There's got to be a storyboard of like what has been done and what kind of puzzle piece method can we do. I
Yeah.
do think Alien is on the forefront of like current contemporary from 1979 to now, um, like on the forefront of like taking design from. And I think Alien took a lot of inspiration from like those previous movies of just like how was their pacing, how was their design work. I mean, Giger had most of the say, I would assume, like because if you look at a lot of his paintings, it's incredibly well. One, it's incredibly phallic, but two, it's also
Right.
like haunting, very much like what the alien figure is.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they did literally see a Giger painting and be like, we got to get this guy. So he was chosen for his like very intentionally, like they wanted him to do.
I feel if you take him out of you take him out of the creative process of this entire movie, I don't think you have anything close.
I agree. Yeah,
like set design when they're on the ship, like the ship is like the alien ship is so scary and huge and just like I don't know because when they go down and they see the eggs, because I'm assuming that's a matte painting too. Now that you mentioned matte paintings, like I'm now I want to watch it again and see what I can see, but like just how vast and endless it's like how big actually is this?
Right. I think we should talk about the acting in this a little bit more too. It's because I think everyone's great in this. Something Roger Ebert noted in his initial review is that everyone's a little bit older than you would typically get in a thriller, and then like a horror movie. Like this is not teenage kids, going to the woods.
They're just people trying to do their job.
Exactly. I think that's what works so well about it. And yeah, Sigourney Weaver is great in this. Obviously a star-making turn in here. But I think maybe my favorite person is Yaphet Kotto. All his interactions with Harry Dean Stanton as like the very working class guys who are always like one of them is or both of them are always smoking or chewing gum or snacking or carrying around a magazine, and they have all these like would clearly rather be doing anything but work while also doing the work. They're not lazy.
Yep.
They're aware of being exploited and they're very open about it. And these would probably be the guys I hang out if I was on the ship.
Oh, absolutely. I think I've had a couple people I work with that are very much like one of each of the. Yeah, there's always the one that tries too hard, and there's always the one that is just kind of like the laissez-faire. Like,
right.
But I think in terms of like what they could do with such a small cast, right? There's a couple people. There's not under 10, obviously, but like but usually when you watch a scary movie, there's one character that you're like they're trying a little too hard, or you're just like I hope they die first.
Right.
Like I remember watching this like I remember watching this for the first time and being like, man, I hope they all make it, because like this I wouldn't wish that kind of fate on anybody, specifically anyone in this movie, because you have really good like pairs of people. Like there's the weird kind of connection between Dallas and Ripley. Forget the name, gentleman who plays Dallas.
Tom Skerritt.
I really like his character. I don't know why. I like him a lot because he's kind of cool, calm, collective, but also he doesn't really want to take a captain's role until the very end. I realizes like shit. I probably I'll go in the air ducts. Like I should do it. I'm the captain. I might as well, because even when they the idea of the quarantine where Ripley's not and he was like, no, let us in, and she's like, no, like that's a very uncaptain. But he's like the anti-hero where it's just like he's making all these wrong decisions and you want him to pull through, but like he's making these bad decisions on his own. But I really like how he's played, especially not because it's like you think of any sci-fi, like the captain is always like the main character, the guy in control, and he's really not.
Yeah. Same for me with the like that the captain's not about it and that the they turn the scientists on their head too. That to me that was very like genre bending of just sci-fi, I guess, in general. I think that like to have a hero character, it would be the scientist almost, and then again that gets turned on its head. So I like that. To me, the authenticity of like all of their performances and all of the way that they react to what's going on is just very realistic and very helps you be along for the ride as well. Certainly enhancing the horror element for me.
I think there's a little bit of familiarity in all these characters, right? Like we said, like you
Mm-hmm.
probably
Sure.
were somebody like this, or maybe you are one of these characters. So, like I said earlier, like if I was Ripley and it's just me and I have a cat and I'm running through a spaceship and there's this thing trying to eat, I'm not going to do very well. I know myself. I'm not a Ripley character at all. Like so,
Right.
I'm fully aware that this is a very haunting situation that they're put in. I
Mm-hmm.
think every actor just crushed it. Even Ash being like a cyborg and playing
Yeah.
Yeah.
it like just off a little bit. Like as soon
Yes.
as he talks, you're like, this guy's weird. He's
Yeah.
just a weird scientist guy. But now,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, I don't know.
I think it's important that Lily Ripley is always correct, and I feel like
Yeah,
she was
yeah,
right. We should follow quarantine, whereas
yeah.
typically the by the book wet blanket character is often the person you want to see get killed first in this type of movie, because it's like, no, we need a wild card captain, a Kirk, a man of
Mhm.
action to say, screw the rule book. But no, she's right by wanting to follow it. Um, and it just occurred to me too, like you said, that the two people we would assume would be the leaders, Dallas and Ash. We have our captain, our chief science officer. That goes back very long, but that's also Star Trek, as Kirk and Spock. We expect those to be the two people making decisions, and they are not. They're not the heroes of this movie.
Like constantly making wrong decisions too. Like
Yes, yeah, and then of
not,
course Ash obviously being a second villain, as
Mhm.
well.
he is one of the more
But
hateable characters. Like
I
yeah,
know.
just personality wise, it's like why won't you
Mhm.
give us any information on what's going on? Why are you, especially the quarantine thing, that like when I watched that for the first time I was like, yeah,
Right,
that's not what you do. If you're a science guy,
right,
Yeah.
that's not
and then
what
just
you should be on the other end saying, hey, we're
Mhm.
keeping you outside.
right. Well, also like you're talking about Dallas not wanting to take responsibility, is very happy to pass off a hard decision to Ash, someone who's already made a hard
almost
and
immediately
wrong
almost immediately
decision.
yeah
Yeah,
yeah
is unwilling to
almost
talk
immediately
about it.
like no that's Ash's science, he does that, and it's like, well, I think something that I always found interesting, and every time I watch it, and my buddy when we were watching it was like, why would they do that?
Mm,
When he comes in, like he's got it on his face and it's around his neck,
Mhm.
and when it comes off and all of it, like there is still not a quarantine thing. There's
yeah,
this organ, and maybe that's because it's post COVID and whatever, but
sure.
like I don't know if I'd want to be in the same vicinity. I wouldn't want to eat a meal with him. I
I
probably
Right.
know.
would want him to, and also for the well-being of everyone, but also the well-being of him. Is normal
Right.
exposure a good thing? Should he just stay in that room until we see what happens? That always baffled me. Of just like,
Hmm.
I think there's a moment too where Ash is like, "You can take your mask off now,"
I was gonna
and then
mention
Dad,
that. But they're
Yeah.
like
and it's
they're
like, but
mid-surgery, basically. Not mid-surgery, but he's like in the he's being scanned or whatever. I'm like, what? That's a little strange.
I think it
I
does.
also,
This movie does follow the some of the standard tropes of what happens in a scary movie. Like you
Uh-huh.
mentioned, it's
right.
not a teenager like slasher film, but they do have some
Mhm.
teenager qualities if you think about it. So they're making weird calls. Like we're not gonna
Mhm.
follow all the quarantine stuff. They do decide to split up, like Scooby Doo, like so.
True.
There's
Uh-huh.
that element of it, but
I guess it
No,
helps
I
that
think
that they're more of a ragtag team because maybe they would be a little more competent if they were like all super on it, like Ridley's character or something. So it helps. It helps the film.
yeah.
absolutely.
I think something else that just makes it feel very grounded is those scenes where they are just eating and there's all the crosstalk, you know,
Mhm.
and you just have people interacting. They feel very natural. These feel like real conversations, and I guess it's reading Ridley Scott would have them rehearse improvising, just having them do like group dinner scenes like that without a script of just And he also sent everybody like a 10-page backstory on their own character that was
Mhm.
not shared with other people, so everyone knew more details about like Ripley, etc. I think it's a really great idea because it is really important that you have these scenes that just feel like these are people just interacting, and so many dinner table scenes when whatever it is, whether it's work or just the family, have like no dialogue in it, or in a way that doesn't feel like it's supposed to be uncomfortable, just feels odd. So I thought this felt very lively, and it's a great way to get a sense of who these people are.
And you feel
Also,
better when one of them dies too, because it's like
exactly.
they clearly know each other. There's clearly like these interworkings of like, you know, how, like I think there's when I keep forgetting his name, Brett, the guy in the Hawaiian shirt. I
Yeah,
keep forgetting his
I think the character is Brett.
so when Brett dies,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
like visibly Parker is incredible. Like obviously everyone's kind of scared and nervous, but visibly
Sure.
Parker is just frustrated and irritated and just like he wants like guns blazing. I want to get this thing off the ship. I want to destroy it and its entire
Yeah.
being. And it really does speak to like all that little small dialogue of Brett going right every time like Parker says a thing.
Yeah.
That's a great scene too.
Yeah.
It is. No, it definitely feels like earnest friendship, but also the type of not quite animosity, but frustration you would have working on a long haul situation. These, I think I missed it previously, but just like how they literally are just deciding to eat one last meal is right over the chest where your scene happens. Other than if they didn't decide to do that, they were about to go into the freeze, you know, which, you know, obviously they don't know, that probably would have meant that the alien just took over the ship or just ate them in their sleep or whatever. But them having that thought of being so close to just going back into cryo sleep, then we wake up and we're home, you know, and is also a great detail of the exasperation. You know, we were so close. Well, I think we should probably kind of get final thoughts and the recommendations, if that's all right with you. Adam, this is your choice. So anything else you want to make sure you say? And also, what would you say to somebody who has not seen Alien? Maybe they're putting it off. What's your pitch to go finally convince them to see it?
That's a long question. I think I have a question for you guys too, because I'm very curious because I ask everyone. But let me answer that one. So I think my pitch to them is, I think it's what I said earlier. Like if you like A24 style horror, because that's what everyone's kind of gravitating towards to now, is like this. It's got an aesthetic. It's very much like centralized and it's very grounded, right? Which a lot of horror movies aren't. It's like, you know, it's the standard. We're going to a campsite. There's somebody who's not supposed to be there. Everyone dies. The end, right? So like this isn't one of those things. It's an incredibly grounded film. My pitch to them is, if you like A24, if you like deeply grounded story, not even horror, because I think if you don't like horror, you can definitely still appreciate the hell out of this movie based off like set design, character design. The acting is incredible. I think if you switch out any of the characters, with different actors, I don't think it works very well. I like, especially Sigourney Weaver, obviously, but I'd say if you like an aesthetic and you like a very good story, you need to watch Alien. But I have a question.
Yes. Let's hear the question.
What are your favorite, like, what is your favorite moment of this movie? It's a very novice question, but I'm just genuinely curious because I have, but I want to hear what your guys are.
I have to think about it because like I said, I feel like the horror elements were great and they like worked very well, but I think some of the moments that shine are like the quieter moments, are like, for me, like the sets are just crazy. So I want to pick a good one. I feel like the robot was the most, I think, horrific for me almost, which is kind of funny. It's not the main xenomorph, which I do find very frightening. But I think it's unfortunately, like, it's almost like the iconicism of the xenomorph gets a little like I've seen it having this be my first watch of an actual Alien, so it's almost like it's spoiled for me in that regard. So I think that's why the robot scene was so and I kind of like uncanny valley stuff, especially with like human body form. I think that's kind of difficult to do well. And this one was just extremely effective. So I don't know, that one's standing out for me right now.
I think for me it's the scene, the moment specifically when Brett is looking for the cat and the Harry Stanton Hawaiian shirt wearing character, and there's a moment where there's like these drips coming from the ceiling, and he just tilts his head up, and I always think that's where he's about to get his head bitten off. Even though I've seen this movie several times now, it's this great moment of a guy just trying to enjoy a little brief moment of relaxation, you know, and there's such a threat that's in the air, and he does die moments later, but it always catches me off guard of like, I mean, anyone who's worked a job knows what that's like, of just like, I've got to take a little bit longer with my coffee break or whatever, or I'm going to go do whatever it is to have a brief moment of solace, you know. And he gets it, and I think that's one of the reasons I like this is he has that full moment and then moves on and then he dies. But that very brief shot always gets me. I think he was about to die right then.
But I
Well, I
thought the
think too,
drops and the sound design,
Oh yeah, also the sound
doesn't it,
design we should talk about is incredible in this movie.
the
but
chain.
specifically the rain, doesn't it sound like the predator clicking, like
Yes, it
the
is
animal
probably
noise?
drips off of him. I think is one of the implications. Yeah,
It's true. Oh,
yeah,
it was perfect. It was like I
right.
couldn't believe that.
Yeah,
And like what you said, Seth, about the like he just needs a moment of peace, but you think he's gonna die right there. It's such a vulnerable position he's in, just like
yes.
open neck
Closing
looking
his
up.
eyes. Yeah,
But not even, and it just speaks to his character of like he is the most relaxed crew member of just like,
right.
yeah, they're coming on the ship, I gotta find the cat, you know, like he's not really the most worried about it.
That's
And I'm
my
just
job.
Right.
yeah, that's a
What
great
is
moment.
what is your answer, Adam?
Yes.
So I every time I watch it, it gives me like some like the hair on my arm stands. It's when they bring him in and his helmet is melted.
Mm.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah,
we're using the little saw and that little kind of sound. That's the only sound you hear. Everyone is outside, like the surgery room, completely quiet,
mhm,
and it's a weird ASMR thing. But the thunk, helmet popping off, and then
Oh,
it's revealed there's this slimy thing on
yeah,
top of. I can't imagine anybody in that ship like feeling comfortable or just like
yeah,
the shock of it like that.
no.
That was when I watched it for the first time. That was the thing that got me. And for whatever reason, like that scene is just a skosh too long, just a little bit
mm,
of like them. They actually show like all the helmet getting and then the kunk
yeah,
moment and then you have really cool scene the zoom in of it like tightening around the neck. Like
right.
that is my favorite because it really it's we talk about tone for this whole movie that sets the like, oh my god, what is this? Like, just
Yes.
Yeah,
it's like the spider on over. Like, get it off. Like, it's got to
mhm,
get off my body. It's got to get off my friend. I
Mhm.
don't want it on this ship. Like,
right.
it accelerates the pace a little bit, but that's
Mhm.
my favorite.
Nice,
Yes.
great. It is hard to choose from. Um,
Yeah.
Megan, your final thoughts on Alien?
Sure. I mean, Adam summarized it so perfectly. I feel a little like unworthy almost of giving a a pretty good recommendation. But hey, if you're like me, like
Apologies.
no, I'm so glad you did it. I'm so glad you brought the movie to us. I think, and to me specifically for the first time. I think I've just really been enjoying seeing genres even but seeing sci-fi that surprises you, I guess, and this one
Sure.
is surprising. I feel like it's not um it's I don't think it's defined, I should say, by by being a sci-fi film, a horror film like we talk about, but also just I can't get over how much of a big scope this feels like for the $11 million budget. Like that's insane to me. So
Yeah.
I think if you're to talk about economic filmmaking, if you want to like a really good lesson in that, I watch this and take notes, and I certainly am. It's affected like how I look at horror, because we know that horror is like it can be made on the very low, but just
Sure.
the sheer amount of what they do with it and the success of it all is just really impressive. Like it's fun to see it's historical. Like really, it's a historical film.
Dude,
So
I
I
mean,
Yeah.
that's been
for the
fun.
time too.
Sorry,
Like
say that
how
again.
for the time too. Sorry to interrupt. How
No,
old the
please.
Sure.
movie? Like
I
it
I agree.
pretty. It's really impressive.
It is. That's my biggest thing. I
Yeah.
saw Star Wars. And talking about like the sets and stuff quickly too. I remember seeing Star Wars stuff, and it kind of like has aged. I feel like a little bit worse for some reason than this. This seems so fresh. I just that's all I like the one of the bigger takeaways I had from it. And I don't know why. It's very similar. Like they're doing similar things, but there's just something about even like the tech in this movie that yes, it feels a little vintage, but it still works. And
Yeah.
there's like a style element that is kind of transcends, time. And so that was incredible.
I fully agree.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for bringing this movie
Yes.
to the podcast, and I'm really glad we got to talk about it. And Megan, you're a big horror fan, so I knew you were going to like it.
Yes.
And
I
my
did the trust in it too, honestly. Like when you told me to pick, I was like, oh, I thought you were going to give me a movie to watch, and then
No, sir.
it was fun to have a little free reign. I mean,
yeah,
we asked my wife. I was like, what do I pick? What do I like? There's so many. I have quite a few movie related tattoos, so it's just like there's
nice.
Which one?
there's so I have the top from Inception.
Oh,
Oh,
very
hell yeah,
yes.
nice,
And I have, what is it? I have the raptor claw from Jurassic Park.
nice.
I have a Silence of the Lambs moth on my leg, and it's right next
Oh,
to the
nice.
yeah.
So you could have been like, which one do I choose today?
And that's kind of what it was. What tone do I set? And then I actually remembered us talking about like horror stuff, and I was like, well, let's jump into that realm, right? But or anything from Christopher Nolan because I like him a lot too. But I think
nice.
Aliens, it's definitely in my top 3 of movies.
Wow,
fantastic.
nice.
Yes, I think I want to say in particular, folks, if you are a somewhat younger film goer and have in your head that older horror movies aren't scary, watch this movie because I think a lot of people have in general like, oh, practical effects weren't good back then. They were frankly, or not practical effects. They're a hell of a lot better. They look better. Also, we didn't acknowledge this. There was a guy in the suit too. His sole acting credit.
Just nuts. He wasn't used more, right?
Well, he didn't. He didn't want to keep acting, I guess. Shit, I had this. Give me 1 second.
I believe he was a design student. I think I heard that.
Yeah, he Balaji, and apologies for pronunciation, Balaji Badejo, who was Nigerian, and he was 6'10", and very tall dude. But yeah, he was in the costume, and just kind of didn't really like acting, and he had a art gallery that he ran after this movie. So died young of sickle cell disease, but. I was just going to say that's like if you mentioned Jurassic Park a couple times, there's guys in the raptor costumes for part of it. You have that incredible blend of CGI and practical effects, and that's why it works. Well, we don't see the monster very often. When we do, it is also very cool that it was a costume they made too. So yeah, check this out if you think that you can't be scared by something older. In particular, that's my challenge for you folks. Obviously, there's older scary movies as well. We'll get into that in a different episode, but check this one out. It definitely holds up. And I think it is very, if you like me are kind of frustrated with some the later output by Ridley Scott, this is a fun reminder of why people talk about it, why he became such a household name, who's had such a long career. This is an incredible punching above its weight movie when it comes to budget, like you mentioned it, Megan. Okay, on to recommendations. Adam, would you mind as our guest starting us off?
Sure. I have a couple answers, and I mentioned earlier, like
perfect.
One of them's a cop out, but I recommend just watching all of the Alien things.
All right,
like
nice.
Even the ones in the franchise, like an Alien vs Predator.
Yep.
They did a couple of those like that don't really stand up, and they're just pandering to the audience that really wants more aliens or more predators. But I think each movie has some weird little takeaway. Like I think if you like high action thriller and it's like that super macho 80s action movie, you got to watch Aliens. I think if you like the grunge of the early 2000s, you got to watch Alien 3 because it's so intensely like it's got a lovely sepia tone over the whole movie. Because it is just super gritty, and it's nice. There are some scenes that are pretty like punk and just kind of hard to stomach. And I think if you really want wild, insane sci-fi that is batshit crazy, you watch Alien 4 because that is Alien Resurrection, I think it was called. That one's pretty nuts. And then my other side thing aside from Alien, I think movie Arrival with Amy Adams.
Oh sure, yeah.
That is a wonderful movie about how alien encounters can be completely diverse and different. Like we paint the picture of what we all have the standard thing in the back of our head of like, oh, if an alien were to touch down on the planet, what happens, right? And it's always the negative side. This is an incredibly powerful and moving story about a woman that's going through trauma, and like her job is forcing her to go into this world traumatic experience and trying to figure it out while also handling grief in the best way. I have not
Yeah,
seen it in a very long time, but that I next to the Alien franchise, that is probably my second like favorite standalone like Alien movie because
Very
it's just
nice.
such a
sure.
different perspective.
Nice.
That's
We've
a great
talked about
movie.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about it on the podcast here. Not in a episode, but we've
Yeah,
talked about it in passing.
yeah. I mean, as an artist
Yeah.
too, like the symbol based like
Yes.
communication
Mhm.
that for me was like, yep, we can all connect in some kind of visual form, and that's exactly why I do what I do.
Very nice.
That's awesome.
Cool.
I remember just being so excited when that movie came out, and I'm always butchering the name, but Denis Villeneuve, I believe is how you pronounce the director's name. Just being like, oh shit, we got a new sci-fi guy, and of course now he's making the Dune movies. But
Um,
that would be so exciting to me because, frankly, not since Nolan, who hasn't done a sci-fi, what we did Tenet, but who hadn't done one in a moment at that point, there wasn't like another big name of somebody who you could depend on. Like if they're doing a movie, it's going to be a good sci-fi. So that was very exciting. Or Riddle, the director, as well as the movie.
nice.
Um, Megan, you're up.
Yeah,
Recommendation.
I'm gonna, I guess, kind of stay in. This is a little bit of a predator world, but and I've talked with Seth about this, but I was just so impressed by Prey that came out in
Yeah.
2022. We were really
Yeah.
happy with it. And I think it's because I really, the thing about alien genre that is very exciting to me is like when it is that uncanny valley like aspect of it all. When
Mhm.
it touches down on Earth, I like to. It's very interesting to see like interactions with humans, obviously, and this one's kind of all about that, but also set with the setting of it being a native tribe. I forget, like I think
Comanche.
early like Comanche, yeah, maybe
Mm.
early like 1700 or something like that. So I like the timeline of it all too. Like that's always fun. But it was a surprisingly good addition to this to the genre. So I'm really happy with it. I just keep touting it. I can't. It's kind of like up my alley.
It did very well too, like
I know.
incredibly well
Yeah.
received by the audience. And I know it did so well. I think they're making another one.
That
Oh,
would be
nice.
great. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
it's
all
fun. It
for it.
was fun to see.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, that's was such a great, like almost, definitely a smaller scale thing, but almost like Mad Max Fury Road of how many
I
other
know.
times this is the fourth movie, or I don't know if it's fourth or what number it is, but like a movie that there hasn't been a sequel to in like a full decade come out and be that good. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen often, but it does happen in sci-fi and
Yeah.
horror occasionally.
Good action,
um,
I think.
yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
great recommendation and great, Native American cast.
Yeah.
And also very, yeah, you can watch the movie in English or in Comanche, which is very cool.
That is cool.
Um,
Didn't even know that. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Good for that.
yeah, I recommend seeing it in the Comanche language.
So,
And both options are available on Hulu.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
I'm going to recommend a Ridley Scott movie. I'm going to recommend Blade Runner
Yeah.
because
About it.
that's still one of my favorite worlds. Such a great sci-fi. Just again, we're talking insane matte paintings and production. And folks, if you don't know which version to watch, there are about five, and the Ridley Scott approved version is not the director's cut like you'd think. He actually was very upset about the director's cut. They just slapped that name on it. It's the one that's called the final cut, and you got the right one because he introduces the DVD saying this is the one to watch.
Oh
So
Lord.
it's a little bit shorter than some of the other versions. It doesn't have the narration that the original release had. So just want to get that out there. But it again, going back to, I would love to see him do a brand new sci-fi world. He wrote Blade Runner 2049, or he co-wrote it. He didn't direct it. Denis did, and that was very cool. I think it was a little long,
I
but it's like,
liked
all
the
right, his other. I liked it too, and like we've. I think that was like Riley's pick on a previous guest. I think it is a great movie,
We might do it.
possibly too long, but I really
Yeah.
liked it. Yeah, we probably should eventually. So I'm not saying the original's better. I mean, I love Harrison Ford. It's a great movie, but it'd be so great to see him do a completely new sci-fi thing. Like he has the Blade Runner franchise he's dipped back into. I think there's some talk about a TV show, and he's had the Alien franchise, which he's come back to. But this is nothing like Alien, other than that it's sci-fi and you have corporations. um, but it's still such an incredible design. It's very different than the book by Philip K. Dick, but Philip K. Dick did get to see it before he died, and gave, I think, a very high compliment of that's exactly what I thought it would look like. That's exactly what I thought my world looks like. So, going again, the set designs, and really got to be good at hiring those people. So,
yeah.
here's my hope that he does something like that again.
Absolutely no his deep grounded like visions for his movies
Yeah,
are specifically is sci-fi. Like
Right.
his ability to create a world that is realistic and you're able to connect with it is hard. Like it's
Yeah.
hard to hit. I think like a good example of Blade Runner, good recommendation. I've only actually seen that movie once, and I do remember enjoying it the first time I watched it. I remember being
Yeah.
confused, but I also remember like wanting to see a lot more of it and
Right.
trying to expand my knowledge on it because it's mind bending that first one.
It's very mind bending. Yeah, it's very. And I know some people, like critics who I respect, don't think it's good because they think it's too confusing, and I don't think it's too confusing. It's certainly, you mentioned Nolan. It's not as confusing as most Nolan movies, frankly, but also like most Nolan movies, it is improved, I think, or at least your understanding upon a second viewing. And I think it goes, like you say, he's so great at creating a sci-fi universe, which is maybe part of my frustrations with his historical stuff. Like I mentioned, being disappointed by the historical inaccuracy in Napoleon. And I was reading recently, the historian he hired on Gladiator asked to have their name removed because they were so upset with inaccuracies. And while they're good at doing a big production design thing and a good looking movie, like Gladiator is a great looking movie, I think they would actually rather just make their own thing up. So it's like if you're going to toss aside history and just do your own thing, just do that. Don't use a real historical figure and make shit up. In my opinion.
No, I fully agree, actually.
Yeah. That being said, Amadeus is a great movie, and that story's not true. Those guys got along. So, there's exceptions. Well, Adam, thank you so much for coming out. We want to make sure people can follow your art. And if you wouldn't mind in particular, I'd like you to talk more about your book, Saunter Ever Forward. This got it here. This is one of these unique things I've ever seen, I've ever encountered. It's a graphic novel about dialogue.
Yeah.
Right.
It was. I appreciate you giving me the time.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it was a story that had been popping in my head for a while about this little nameless character that I just kept including into drawings, almost like somebody asked me at a show once if this was like a visual representation of myself, and I was like, I never thought about it that way, and then that has been stuck in the back of my head for years. So maybe it is, but it follows this nameless character who just kind of stumbles into a new environment, and there's a lot of trauma that they encounter in terms of like wildlife around them is dying. The landscape is kind of ever changing. It's a lot of sensory overload in some moments, a lot of surprises, but also happens to find some kind of unique companion, all while trying to figure out where they're going in terms of like, it seems like their companion's leading them somewhere. And how I tried to pace the book was just, it's weird talking about your work. I just realized that. Sorry.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
How I wanted to pace the book was basically step by step, right? So the idea of Saunter Ever Forward, just a convoluted way of just saying walk that way, right? Like walk straight, just keep trying to. And what I wanted to convey is like this character is seeing quite a few things unfold. Some deep lore that they're witnessing, and like they have no backstory on this, meeting characters that they only see for a couple pages, and then you don't see those characters again. But all the while you are trying to put yourself into this little nameless character's being and see like what you try to figure out what's happening as well. Everyone I've talked to who has read the book and has been so nice to reach out has openly given me a completely different interpretation than the previous person, which is something that I did not anticipate because I have a linear. There will be a second book at some point, but most of those directions are nothing even close to what I had anticipated, which is very cool. So it's like if you're able to read it, take a thing from it. There is like half a book that actually does have dialogue, where where the main character is talking, and then there's a couple characters that show up that were talking as well. But I'm very excited for the second book. I don't know when that's going to be because I'm working on a small little side project book for a different character that I have. But yeah, I'm just happy that it was really well received. I'm very happy that people came out for the Kickstarter event. That was like May of 2023, which was very cool. Overwhelming support, which is just everything. And I didn't necessarily think that would happen, right? I mean, when you work on a project for like 6 years, and then it's finally like go time, and it's either make or break, because if the Kickstarter didn't necessarily hit the amount of books that I would have been able to make, dramatically drops. It's like the rollout of the whole thing doesn't really take off. So I'm very fortunate that people are so generous and like people like Seth that were just met me for like a good like 10, 20 minutes, and we're like, yep, I'm going to buy this and we're going to give it a shot. And it's like the trust from people like you really helps a lot.
Wow. Well,
Well, thank you.
congratulations. That's amazing. Like you say, it's getting anything out there is amazing, but I love it kind of sounds like your creativity sparked more creativity in your audience too, but that's really nice. So
Well, I hope that's the case.
very cool.
I mean, it is what I do for a living. So I'm a teacher. So like, so inspiring. It's not in my contract, but it's kind of something that you have to do.
I'm forced to. That's the job. But hey, it sounds like it's working. So very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's fantastic. I've never read anything like it. I will say I won't share my fully fleshed out plot by plot point because I'm still frankly contemplating it, but I just found it very beautiful. I definitely get the sensory overload. Frankly, I think everyone will be very impacted by it, but if you're in our age group, if you're a millennial, and you kind of you have a certain amount of trauma from how many supposedly once in a lifetime events we've already gone through. Like aside from any other historical background or anything like that, it's been hard, folks. We've seen a lot, and I just found it very cathartic to read. I remember just being very moved by it, and I found it very hopeful while still acknowledging how terrifying life is. So this is one of my favorite impulse purchases I've ever made.
Oh wow! Oh, that makes me so happy.
Yeah, I'm very glad, very happy to endorse it, and it's beautiful. It's incredible art style, and very excited for more of our nameless protagonist here.
Yeah, which I'm still also, like, people keep trying to give him names or them. Or
really?
I don't know what it is. They keep trying to like give, like somebody at a show was like, what about Frank? And I'm like, I mean, I don't know if Frank fits the vibe, but if Frank helps you through the narrative, by all means.
Sure. Frank is fine.
Yeah, definitely not Frank though.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that.
Of course. We also, I didn't realize you were a teacher. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for doing that. That's an incredibly hard job. That's gotten much harder over the years. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're doing great work.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
We will have links to your shop, but if you also want to just take this opportunity, anyone who's more audio inclined, where can then people find you, find your work?
You can find me, to those of you listening, you can find me at _ ACM Designs _ on Instagram. That's usually where I put most of my stuff. I am more than inclined for you to message me if you have any commission ideas or if you want something to work with. If you're a writer, if you're an author, and you want to come up with some kind of comic work. If I've been actually doing a lot of band commissions, like a lot of music groups.
Fun.
I just finished up a demo track cover for a small band up in Madison, which is super nice.
Cool.
But it's just kind of so if you have any project you'd like to work on, I'm more than willing to try something. Otherwise it's just gonna be a lot of my doodles that you see, which is super nice. But yeah, so I mostly just do stuff on Instagram. And if you are interested in purchasing Saw Trevor Forward, my website is attached to my Instagram and a bunch of other prints and cards and stuff that I have. Fun stickers too, because stickers are always fun. So I appreciate you guys giving me the time to come out and do this.
Oh, absolutely.
We're very grateful to have you on.
Very grateful, Pleasure to meet you, Adam, and thanks for bringing Alien to our podcast, but also to my life.
I'm so happy you now are you're indoctrined in whatever this is.
It was great.
Yes,
it was very enjoyable.
One of us.
Yeah.
Well, folks, that'll do it for this episode. As always, keep watching, keep listening, and now you have your homework cut out for you. Go back, check out Adam's incredible artwork, and if you have a vague idea, send it over to him. Get a price and get a commission going. We highly recommend his work.